I think everyone has that one game that stays with them as they get older. The kind of game that upon seeing, hearing, or reading takes you back to a moment in time where everything made sense. To a moment where you were able to escape to a different world beyond our own. For me, the first time I experienced that was with The Legend of Zelda: Ocarina of Time. It wasn't my first game, but it was the one that made me see video games in a different light. The realization that these interactive experiences could incite ownership and feelings in a way that other mediums cannot. Super Mario 64 was the first game that introduced me to video games, but Ocarina was the one that made me love it. It is my favorite game. Although I've played it many times since I was little, I've never sat down and put my thoughts to a page. I figured it would be an interesting look back with a more seasoned mindset. The story of Ocarina starts in the hidden forest of the Kokiri, where a great disturbance can be felt by the children of the forest and its great Deku tree. Revelations of a great evil has come to fruition, and a prophecy of a young boy and girl with the burden of destiny will be needed. The boy without a fairy feels it too, having nightmares of said evil and a significant event that will soon alter the course of time itself. This is our young hero, met with a fairy named Navi who requests audience with the great Deku tree in hopes that the young boy will be the fabled hero of legend, the hero of time. We're introduced to the children of the forest. Some are delightful like Saria, and some are Mito. Mito is an asshole. Here in the forest, we learn of the relationship between the hero and the other children, and it's immediately felt that Link is different from the others, being titled the boy without a fairy. And after overcoming his first trial of acquiring a sword and shield, Link finally meets with a great Deku tree. He's been cursed, and requests that you put your courage to the test to investigate. The story's pacing is masterfully done, always giving you just enough to keep you invested in its world. Link goes through his first real trial, finding the source of his mentor's pain. Here inside the great Deku tree, the eeriness of the game can be felt, immediately letting the player know that something is wrong. Going through a number of evil creatures and obstacles, Link encounters the root of the Deku tree's pain, a creature named Goma. However, destroying Goma does not bring ease to the great Deku tree. As he shares the story of the world's creation, the sacred Triforce, and the evil being with a desire for power, it's revealed that the great Deku tree lied to you. The source of the curse had been destroyed, but it was too late. The evil being that had placed a curse on your mentor was successful. With his final breath, the Deku tree grants you a sacred stone of the forest, and places a burden on our hero's shoulders. The hero's destiny is to find Zelda, and with that, the great Deku tree has died. The first thing that always strikes me about Ocarina of Time's world and story is the great amount of ownership you have over this world. The game creates a desire to fix it, and that feeling is echoed in the land. As you aren't the only one who's feeling this burden, it's felt through the people as well. Although not everyone shares this urgency, the feeling is still there. The world changes, and it grows based on you, the player. Saria, Link's closest friend, sees our hero off, wishing him safety and gives him her ocarina, in hopes that the player will not forget her or the children of the forest. Our young hero leaves for Hyrule Castle. The world of Hyrule is vast, with each corner of the world bringing a new environment and culture. The size and scope of Hyrule Field can be felt in contrast to the small size of Kokiri Forest. Even Hyrule Castle Town feels full of life and energy, with celebration and unity throughout the town. There are many sights and things to do in town, like rupee shooting and visiting the Temple of Time. And I'll admit, I did get a tad distracted with the rupee shooting when I walked into the door. I'll cover the controls more in the later section, but good lord did I have a rough time with this one. The hero makes way for Castle Hyrule, where he begins sneaking his way through the guards, or trying to. Eventually, Link meets Malon and Talon. These characters introduce the concept of side quests. Side quests in this game also influence the story and the world around you. After finding your way through the remaining guards within the castle walls, the hero of time meets with the young Princess Zelda. She tells you of her dreams similar to yours, feeling great pain and prophesizing your arrival. She explains how the sacred realm works and your role in the adventure, even introducing you to the evil man that is responsible for the great Deku tree's demise, Ganondorf. They make a promise to save the world no matter what. Her guardian, a Sheikah named Impa, teaches you the royal family's song, Zelda's Lullaby. And the hero is off on his long journey. The gameplay of Ocarina is an evolution from its predecessors. Although not revolutionary in concept, the 3D world has created new challenges and ways to use the familiar weapons and concepts to the series. Like using weapons. Originally only being able to swing in 4 directions, Ocarina's 3D world brings in even more range and movement than before. Movement feels less restricted, however with the change in camera position, the camera becomes more of a challenge than an asset at times. Thus, flying enemies like the Keese are more difficult to hit than before. This led the development team to come up with a new mechanic that the series would continue to refine for many future installments to come, Z-targeting. Although a useful mechanic, the original version causes a few issues in certain areas. Locking onto specific enemies and de-locking enemies is tricky and occasionally creates inconvenient situations. Also, the movement on the N64 is a bit stiff, especially when it comes to aiming. I mentioned the rupee shooting gallery in the first section. The aiming is a bit touchy, and I felt that even slightly moving the stick would cause me to overshoot and pass by the object I'm aiming for. With the hitboxes on certain objects and enemies being small and unclear, this combination can really make for a frustrating experience. A few other concepts have been brought over from A Link to the Past, like jumping off ledges. Unlike Breath of the Wild, Ocarina of Time uses its traditional way of platforming, running up to a ledge and having Link auto-jump. It's a manageable feature, but I'd be lying if I said I didn't miss the Breath of the Wild's more controlled jump, since jumping from a certain angle of a ledge causes Link to sometimes launch in a direction that isn't beneficial. Ocarina of Time's style of gameplay is more of the same from each version of Zelda. Go into town, talk to people, get information, solve puzzles, get into a dungeon, solve more puzzles, and defeat enemies, beat the boss, and get the object of desire. Nothing wrong with the formula, however the objectives are more of the same when compared to A Link to the Past. The thing that keeps you invested in Ocarina is its charm, world, and take on these concepts, since there's a whole added perspective instead of being restricted to a flat plane. Ocarina of Time's gameplay isn't perfect, and I'd be lying if I said that it has aged flawlessly when compared to its future installments. However, these problems have been addressed and solved in later versions of Ocarina, including the Ocarina of Time remaster on Nintendo 3DS. The 3DS offers smoother movement, and with the addition of motion controls, shooting feels more precise than before. It's about this point in the game the world becomes available to you. Our goal has been set, and we've been given direction to go forth and collect the remaining spiritual stones. One resides with the Gorons, and the other the Zora tribe. However, I feel that one of Ocarina's strong points, as well as most Zelda titles, is the exploration portion. On the way to Death Mountain is a smaller sister village to Hyrule Castle, Kakariko Village. Although not complete, Kakariko Village gives the player another opportunity to learn more about Hyrule, its people, and the mission ahead of us, including meeting quirky characters. Here we get introduced to characters like the Cuckoo Lady. She's allergic to cuckoos, yet she keeps them around for some reason. We also get the chance to see this dude. He really likes windmills. Like, a lot. He even composed a song about it, but we'll get to that later. We also get the opportunity to see a cursed family who requests that you help them regain their former human forms by breaking a curse. The only way is to find golden skulltulas, find a certain amount, and get prizes along the way. You could even visit our old friends Malon and Talon at Lon Lon Ranch. There, Malon teaches you a song that resonates specifically towards wildlife and a baby horse named Epona. You might even be tempted to play Talon's chicken game. Don't play Talon's chicken game. Of course, within the stables resides a third member of this bizarre crew, Ingo, a disgruntled stable boy. More on him later. But getting back on track, Link's journey for the remaining sacred stones takes him to the heights of Death Mountain to the depths of Jabu Jabu's belly, each with new species to meet and problems to solve. One is the Gorons, a group of starving creatures hungry for rocks. I'd say their problem is that they're starving, when in reality they're just super picky. You see this stuff? That's 100% rocky goodness, but they want the high quality stuff. And it's located in Dodongo's cavern, which is infested with exploding fire-breathing lizards. And if Link wants their sacred stone, well, he's gonna have to solve their problem. Problem is, Darunia, the Goron leader, is pissed. What he needs is a fresh beat to lighten the mood. And we just got this here, Ocarina. Problem is, we don't know how to play it super well, which means we gotta go back to the source, Saria. Except she's decided to go hide within the Lost Woods. So after finding our way through the maze, we find our old friend sitting on a stump, playing just the beat to lighten the mood of our bulky friend over here. Saria teaches her song, and we gotta trudge all the way back to the Goron's home. After doing one of the greatest jigs in video games, he challenges us to prove how manly we are by solving their starvation/Dodongo problem. Dodongo's Cavern, a dank fire pit of a dungeon. Dodongo's Cavern offers a bit more of a challenge compared to the Great Deku Tree. Here, fire is your enemy. Not only will you get caught on fire, but you may even lose your wooden shield. Also, the dungeon offers a bit more in terms of enemy variety as well. After overcoming the fiery dungeon of Dodongo's Cavern, we come face to face with King Dodongo. Although this one isn't much more threatening than Goma. Once Link burns the Great Dodongo King to death, Darunia breaks our hero's spine, offers the Goron's ruby, and makes you a sworn brother. However, Link graciously refused the gesture to prevent a quick death. Instead, he goes up the safer Death Mountain.
Come on! Looking at that stuff, man.
Atop of Death Mountain, we get the opportunity to meet not only a horrible monster, but a foreshadowing look towards a future temple. However, it's cut short because apparently being in this part of Death Mountain is hot and dangerous, but this part of Death Mountain isn't. So, Link heads for Zora's domain instead, the location of the final spiritual stone. The thing is, the Zora tribe, just as incompetent as the Gorons apparently. Their princess has gone missing and they have no idea how to find her. This group of elite swimmers that have scoured the waters looking for answers apparently didn't look hard enough. because one look in Lake Hylia, right next to the domain I might add, is a bottle left by their princess saying where she is. So of course, because Link found it and he happens to need their sacred stone representing their tribe, he's got to go into Lord Jabu Jabu and track her down. Inside Jabu Jabu is one of the first dungeons I wasn't a fan of. Something about the layout of the dungeon just didn't work for me, and most of the enemies were just variations of the keys. Not that it's bad, but it's more repetitive feeling than the other two, or possibly I just started to notice the repetitiveness of these 3 dungeons during this one. You meet with Princess Ruto, who is also looking for that spiritual jewel, so you gotta help her. The thing is, she sucks. The thing I always noticed as well during this dungeon is the game has a habit of giving you a new item, and that item is the most important item in the dungeon. It's also just the item you need to fight the boss. Every dungeon has one. The later portion of the game mixes things up a bit, but it becomes a tad predictable when going into dungeons. Traversing through Jabu Jabu's various intestines, we eventually find the spiritual stone. Ruta goes to pick it up, and then she's gone. Great. But hey, this dungeon has a mini-boss. That's unique. The actual boss, though, is actually a highlight of the dungeons in the Young Link section. Eventually, after defeating the boss, Link and Princess Ruto escape from Lord Jabu Jabu. Link gets engaged, and the promise of collecting the stones can be fulfilled. How lucky for him. However, the tides of misfortune will show itself, as Ganondorf was ready. Up to this point, I've given you about as thorough of a rundown of Ocarina's story as I'm comfortable retelling here. I've used phrases like, "this is where the world opens up to you." That was true. However, once you've gone forward in time, you'll come to realize that this is where the game really starts utilizing its mechanics and shows its hand. I'm not going to fully retell the entire story. I still want to leave things for you to experience on your own. Although, if you're familiar with the series, the ending isn't going to blow you away. The story past this point is pretty standard fare, but it means more considering everything you've gone through up till this point, as most endings do. So instead, I'm going to cover details I didn't cover in the gameplay of Ocarina Young Link section, and give you a taste of what future Hyrule has to offer, like the musical instrument that's literally in the title of the game. I didn't touch on it much in the first section because the game barely utilizes it up to this point. It gives you songs to use, but aside from songs like the Sun Song, Zelda's Lullaby, and Saria's Song, there really aren't many reasons to use it, aside from establishing it in the world and plot progression. At least, until now. The Ocarina of Time is utilized in various different ways, some we already get introduced to in the beginning, like changing weather, day and night cycles, and acquiring helpful hints from either Navi or Saria. However, there is more. The Ocarina of Time can also move time stones, warp you to various temple locations, call your companion Epona, and conjure a scarecrow to get to hard-to-reach places. The ocarina is important, however it isn't overused as one would expect from the titular item. Experiencing Hyrule after 7 years is an interesting thing to do. This world that you once knew has changed and grew without you for nearly a decade. Even returning to the familiar locations like Kokiri Forest, where your home is overrun with evil creatures and your friends are hiding. Goron's Domain, where the Gorons have been taken and held prisoner by Ganon's minions, or Zora's Domain, which has become a frozen wasteland. You sense that great pain can be felt in this world controlled by Ganon, each used as a tool to make you feel anger towards he who ruined this wonderful world you've gotten to know and love. You feel Hyrule's pain, and your determination to bring the world back to its former glory is enhanced. Even returning to Lon Lon Ranch, remember that disgruntled stable boy Ingo? Ganon gave him control over the ranch, forcing Talon out of town, caging up the animals, and charging to even see them. Even Malon, that little girl you once helped, has grown up and is dealing with these changes. However, it doesn't have to be that way. You can overthrow Ingo. You can use that ocarina to win over Epona again, challenge Ingo to a race, which is a painful race I might add, and escape with your companion. Returning to Lon Lon Ranch, you can see that everything has gone back to normal and Talon is able to return to his home. It's moments like this that make you feel like you've changed the world, no matter how small the deed. The dungeons have even had a bit of a boost in length, difficulty, and have become more engaging than they were before. Here, in the dungeons, everything you've learned and acquired is used here. Not only that, but you'll also be getting more items that are not only better, but are used in ways that require thinking outside of the box. That mini complaint I had about one item being the most important is still here in a way, but it's not the most important tool used anymore. The game is constantly preparing you for your final encounter with Ganondorf. The game even uses time in interesting ways, having you stuck behind an obstacle that isn't passable in the present. However, that obstacle hadn't existed in the past. So, you can go back and change the future, or even see events that you didn't see in the past. You can even influence the past to gain an advantage in the future, like acquiring hype pieces to upgrade your health. It all works wonderfully to keep you moving and learning. These are the things that make Ocarina of Time stand out as a wonderful experience. These are the merits of a game that uses great restraint and careful pacing to build a world that feels special. In the end, Ocarina of Time is an incredible experience. I firmly believe that, even after going through this entire process of covering it. I will admit, however, that on the Nintendo 64, the game hasn't aged super well, but Ocarina of Time 3D on the Nintendo 3DS fixes all the problems I've had with Ocarina and then some. Dungeon layouts are visually clear and easy to follow, especially that water temple. The controls are smoother and feel reliable. Visually, the game looks fantastic, smoothing out those polygons and cleaning up the textures. So if you're feeling inclined to go play it for the first time or return to it, it's definitely worth picking up a Nintendo 3DS copy, or maybe Nintendo will just do everybody a solid and port to the Switch.